This is a story which broke many people's hearts and actually drove terror in the hearts of people of Bengaluru. I will tell you what it is. It was a usual weekend in Begur, located on the Hosur-Bengaluru highway in Karnataka. Little did a couple in a flat in Micro layout know that their lives were to change for the worst. The two young people, partners for over 2 years, had a major fight, and suddenly the man bludgeoned the woman with a pressure cooker, hitting her repeatedly until she collapsed in a heap on the floor in a pool of blood. She was dead after a few moments. The woman was all of 24 years old and was from Tirunelveli in Kerala. The alleged murderer was also of the same age and hailed from Kollam in Kerala. Their names, Deva and Vaishnav, who were partners and were in a live-in relationship and had been living together for the past 2 years in a rented flat in Begur's Maiko layout. The two had known each other since college and later moved to Bengaluru as partners and even worked in the same sector of sales and marketing. So, like many people are speculating, it wasn't as if Deva and Vaishnav had just met, and like many are again saying on social media platforms, on an impulse decided to start living together. But you know what? Like many good things, their relationship started souring. According to neighbors, they would often have loud slanging matches, but neither of them ever went to the police to make a formal complaint. Vaishnav, the alleged murderer, the man in the relationship, was actually consumed with suspicion. That is what everyone is saying. Who's everyone? Witnesses, neighbors. He suspected that Deva was cheating on him, and this was the reason they had a huge argument almost every day. As their relationship worsened, Deva's sister Krishna decided to mediate and called the two over to her home on Saturday, that is the 26th of August, just now. It seemed as if Deva and Vaishnav had reached reconciliation and both of them returned home. However, upon returning home, the couple resumed arguing, and the fight reached to such a level that Vaishnav allegedly lost his cool and struck Deva's head multiple times with a pressure cooker, resulting in her death. Now, Krishna, that is Deva's sister, who had tried a reconciliation between the two, called the couple at around 4 p.m. on Sunday, but became very suspicious as neither of them answered her calls. She then decided to go to their flat. She came there and found her sister Deva's body. After committing the crime, Vaishnav absconded, but was later nabbed by the police. In this unfortunate incident, there are several questions which need to be raised. What is with the extreme violence displayed by the alleged murderer? You remember the gruesome murder of Shraddha Walker, in which her lover chopped her into tiny pieces and threw away her body parts in a park so casually. They were of course living together. Or the murder of 23-year-old Krishna Kumari, who died after her partner Santosh Dhami, who was all of 26, allegedly smashed her head against a wall, once again in Bengaluru, over suspicion of multiple affairs. What are the rights of those in a live-in relationship? I am not going to debate this today really. I think all of us have to sit and understand what has really gone wrong with those who are in a live-in relationship or in love, are partners, and what's gone wrong with the way they think or try to decode the other person's reluctance or any other reason for a breakup. Brinda, shocking really, okay, so I'm going to say this, I do a show called the South Indian, Brinda, I've only done shows around the South. We look at NCRB data, I keep reading it about, we are doing better than the North. That does not mean that I am gloating about it. We belong to one country. But this kind of bashing someone's head with a pressure cooker, Brinda, when you heard this news, what was your reaction?
Faint.
Yeah.
because we are looking at live-in relationships, and the communities, the society and the family would also have to take that blame and responsibility. What was the arrogance, the impunity that made this man to use that pressure cooker to repeatedly hit his partner? Is it because he thought that nobody would care for her? Is it because he would be able to get away by saying that she's like this and she's like that, and that is why it was a crime of passion? Or is he really so blatantly aware that the justice system is not going to punish him swiftly, nor will the justice system take this matter into consideration at the earliest as manslaughter? Because we have a justice system who continuously use phrases which are gendered, and I hope the Supreme Court is looking and listening to us. Crimes of passion is always allocated to this kind of a crime when a partner or a husband beats up his wife or the partner. And that said, we need to ask ourselves, what were the neighbors doing? Why did the family decide that they must patch up? Why did the family even think, the sister even think that this is something that could be patched up and everything would be hunky-dory? These stereotypical attitudes, behavior, and our constant compromising made by the woman is what has led to that death today.
Dhananjay has also joined us. I can see him on the screen, very, very well-known lawyer. I'll go to him in a bit, but before that, let's understand, like Brinda said, you know, what is with this violence? Mimamsa Singh Tanwar, you are a clinical psychologist. Whether it is this case where you imagine, just imagine, I tried imagining it, lifting a pressure cooker, you know, in itself takes an effort. Maybe he held it, I don't want to kind of, actually do a restructuring of the crime scene. I'm not a cop. But I would even be scared to pick up a tiny pencil. I've never done this in my life. But to lift something, so much of anger, and to bang it on someone's head repeatedly, not once. So it's not like you hit once and you say, oh God, what did I do? You know that the person is not hurt enough to match your anger, and you keep hitting. Whether it is this case of Bengaluru that we are focusing on, Mimamsa, or whether it is the case of Shraddha Walker's case, or it is the case of a tribal girl in Jharkhand, whether it is the case, I mean, I can go on and on. These are extreme cases of violence. How do you decode it, Ms. Tanwar?
I think it's very important to understand that over here we are looking that there is an individual subjecting to an impulse reaction to the rage and the violence that they are experiencing at that point in time. The violence is an act, but the emotion that the individual at that point in time is experiencing is extreme rage. And in these individuals, you would also see that there is lack of remorse. You would also see that perhaps that sense of empathy to emotionally relate with someone may also be challenging. And what we've been seeing when we are trying to understand a bit more about these individuals, that there is a history of aggression. There is a history of having this unhealthy way of expressing their anger. And if we try and understand that a bit more, it's not clearly.
So you are someone who's trained. Am I right in decoding what you're saying, Mimamsa? That when you say that perhaps this person allegedly was aggressive, he was someone who would lose his cool unnecessarily. So I'm once again it's conjecture, but I've seen a lot of abusive relationships. You tolerate it once, you say, it happened in impulse, I'm so sorry, let's make up. Then whether it's a live-in relationship or a marriage or any kind of a partnership, I think somewhere because you're tolerating it time and again, it gives you the person, the violent person. I'm not saying, I'm not associating gender, but in this case obviously the man, Vaishnav, took the step because उसको आदत हो गई थी कि कोई सह रहा है इसको बार बार, और क्यों ना अब इस बार मतलब एक ही उसमें, because he was suspecting her of having cheated on him. I mean, I wonder why she stayed on, but she must have had some compulsions. Poor thing is no more with us, so I can't possibly, I won't like to conjecture. Let me come back to you, and meanwhile, ladies and gents, A Bava, retired DCP of Mangaluru, has also joined us. But first, I'll go to Dhananjay. Dhananjay, social media is of course aghast. Poor thing was beaten repeatedly, pool of blood, cruelty, but they are all saying, well, it's a live-in relationship. What is the big deal? You are a lawyer, and I wanted you, that's why on the show, and I called you that, please join us. It is time that a lot of you who watch this show get your facts absolutely checked. I am going to go to Dhananjay to ask exactly, although Dhananjay, a live-in relationship is not deemed to be legal, it's not recognized like a marriage is, like union between two people. I should add had heterosexual people as marriage, but it is legal, isn't it, Dhananjay? And in what circumstances can it be deemed to be legal?
Well, it is legal in the sense, there used to be cases 15, 20 years ago of police trying to prosecute people who live together. So in that context, courts 25, 30 years ago started saying that, look, there is nothing illegal about an arrangement like this. And after some time, they went on to say that there is no kind of morality. And then the law evolved. Now, the law here is judge-made law only. Unfortunately, our lawmakers have not kept up with the times, so you do not find our laws explicitly recognizing this form of relationship. It's rather the courts. Every time there used to be a case before a court where a live-in relationship was involved, courts have done something or the other to protect the women concerned, mostly, and then also to protect the children that were born out of a live-in relationship. So all of the law that we today stand and see is the law that has come from judges. It's a court-made law. It's not really law made by the legislature. And that also tells us that the lawmakers have seemed to have a kind of disdain towards it. And in your introduction to this story, you were saying that many people, would also be commenting and saying that, well, she probably deserved it because she was in this immoral, illegal, illicit relationship and all of that. And to some extent, that section of the society, and I believe that's in fact the majority, that section of the society enables this form of violence. Because so long as we don't consider this, broadly, when society does not broadly accept these forms of relationships, that will also embolden, perpetrators to go and assault a woman, and in this case, to kill a woman. Now, the individual concerned probably might not have been able to do all of this if only a live-in relationship was accorded, the same legal recognition like a marriage does. Because the question is, had he been married, had he tied a Mangala Sutra to her, would he have still done what he did to her? That's a question, and I think the person best suited to answer that is the victim himself. I'm sorry, not the victim, the perpetrator himself. But no one is going to go and talk to the perpetrator on this, so we'll have to make our assumptions. I think the law, because the law in this country does not completely accept these forms of relationships, though there is some protection available in courts. All of these things occur, and unfortunately, we enable it. When I say we, I mean society enables it when we refuse to recognize. When we refuse to recognize the reality of live-in relationships, it's time that we recognize the reality of live-in relationships. And then say that, look, if you're in a live-in relationship, please be open about it and please stand up when someone is abusing
then
you.
Dhananjay, I'm sorry, I'm interjecting, but as a woman, let me tell you, even if he had tied a Mangal Sutra around her neck or tied a tali, he would have still done it. We have seen lots of cases. Marriage does not deter a man like this. But the point is, I'm going to come back to you because we have to understand the laws so far as domestic violence is concerned in a live-in relationship. We understand maintenance. We understand if a child is born out of such a union. But what about domestic violence? I mean, this has come up again and again. Meanwhile, let me go to Mr. Bava. Mr. Bava, thank you for joining us. Mr. Bava, the thing is that if you read all the reports, it is very clear. Apparently, the neighbors have said allegedly that they used to hear the couple, Vaishnav and Deva, who's now passed away, Vaishnav and she having loud arguments all the time, fighting away, right? So, the police has said that, you know, of course, the body allegedly was discovered by the victim's sister Krishna, who came and found her body there. But I want to ask you that what happens to all this neighborhood watch, police patrolling, everything? Because, you know, what I have heard, and Brinda Adige will also kind of perhaps ratify this, that even if you hear a couple shouting, instead of saying it's their personal business, you need to knock on their door and say, what's going on? Mr. Bava.
Yes, of course. What I heard is they were quarreling each other, and sound was the neighboring were hearing the sounds and all. But police can't do anything because it may be a flat. So many flats are there. We can't keep watch on every house and everything what is going on there. But neighbors also got some responsibility. They would have at least informed to the police. If they would have come and inquired, if they inquired, they would have called them. They would have informed their parents, because marriage is different from living together. Marriage means there will be a father-in-law, mother-in-law, sister-in-law. So many people would have been there in the house. But in this living relationship, nobody will be there. They came from Kerala and living there. They're making galata there. If there's some complaints, some information is gone to police station, means they would have taken some preventive action, and they would have prevented this incident also.
Mr. Bava, that galata that they created, the commotion that they created, sir, even a married couple can do. Not necessary that married couple need to have a mother-in-law, father-in-law, sister-in-law. There are nuclear families. The thing is about what the police needn't enter a flat and say, hey, what are you doing?
Definitely, definitely.
They can keep a watch. No, Mr. Bava.
Yes, you think yourself. I am not supporting police or anything.
Okay, sir.
It is in, I think, in Michael, name is Begur police station.
Right.
There are thousands of flats are there, thousands of people coming there and coming from north, south, everywhere. Like they are coming there and staying there. They are doing their business. Maybe
right. Okay.
Right. But it is very difficult to keep watch in every house.
Right.
I'm not defending the police.
Brinda is wanting to respond. Brinda, come in, Brinda. Say.
I have three things to share. First and foremost, we have to place on record, and I'm sure many would, Mr. Bava would also agree with me, domestic violence cases of this nature are the least priority for the police, because they do not necessarily fall within the realms of law and order or crime, because crime has not yet been committed. The Domestic Violence Act is a remedial act. Let us see how to settle. Let's see how to counsel. Let us see how to keep the family together. A. B. We know our society is so patriarchal that they will not interfere even if a husband beats up, and if the mother-in-law and the father-in-law and the entire khandan is there, nobody interferes. And in a case of live-in relationship, even neighbors do not want to interfere. So even if the neighbors are going to make a complaint, how does this complaint get registered at 112, which is the emergency services?
Right.
I am asked to give my details. No, I want to be an anonymous reporter. I'm just a neighbor.
Right.
I don't want to get involved. So we need to ask ourselves, what are the structures and mechanisms that make it even more difficult to report or make a complaint?